We're a company that's been in the dehumidification market for about 40 years. We've split off with an ag-specific unit targeting the indoor cultivation market of all kinds. Obviously right now that's cannabis as the exciting one, but also doing leafy greens, any kind of indoor food production for projects across North America.
So tell us a little bit about the product line. What does it all include?
So our product lines are designed to be the only air handler in a grow room. So heating, cooling, and dehumidification as a single unit or as multiples within that space to achieve some redundancy. What we do differently in this market is we do water-cooled units only. So we've completely eliminated the low ambient problem that exists with split DX units, as well as any site refrigeration work from the installing contractor. So the installation hurdles are much lower, and from my perspective, a little bit selfishly, the warranty problems are much lower as well.
Okay. So why is it beneficial to have a single unit solution?
So the nice thing about a one unit solution is you're not having multiple systems that either fight each other in the space. You're not trying to have a control system to integrate multiple units together to achieve one result. It also means that you're able to achieve a little bit higher efficiency because you're not having dehumidification equipment reject their heat into that grow room that you're then cooling away. Our systems dehumidify and then reject that heat outdoors by default, so instead of having that sort of two-step process. So you're not paying to dehumidify and then paying to cool.
Okay. What would you say are some of the misconceptions that your customers have, when they come to you inquiring about the technology?
So I think the biggest one are just misconceptions that are sort of global in this industry around how these environments behave, around what temperature and relative humidity, how that affects both the size of equipment and the growth of plants. And then I think probably the biggest challenge that we see are growers who aren't totally honest with us in what they're looking to do, what they're looking to achieve, either from their space or from their crop, what they're growing for. Because of the wide range in temperatures that these crops are typically grown under, the huge variance between week 1 and week 12 of a flower in temperature, they're not always super forthcoming with what their plans are. And so from an HVAC perspective, that can get pretty challenging.
So why are they why do they hesitate to tell you exactly what they want?
Industry's still new. It's still new across North America, and people aren't super keen to share what they're doing well and what they're not. And either both successes and failures are being obfuscated, unfortunately. And so, it's trying to get those guys a little more comfortable with us and working directly with the grower to understand every aspect of their operation from a business perspective, how they're running their rooms, how they're running their staffing, when they're running lights on. We want to know everything about what they're doing so that we can help them size equipment properly. And part of that is cutting away the myth that cooling systems plus dehumidification is vastly cheaper than installing a unitary system. Our capital cost, once installed, is in the same ballpark, if not cheaper, and you don't have to deal with the controls integration, and controls are a big part of the expense of one of these rooms.
Are people primarily coming to you when they're setting up a new operation, or are these retrofits?
We do both. We're doing a lot of new operations, obviously, a lot of new states coming online, the Canadian boom as well. But the retrofit market is starting to become very real. We're seeing that a lot in small growers, phase 1. They've done phase 1 with standard cooling devices, sometimes residential cooling stuff with supplemental dehumidification, then they're looking to upgrade for phase 2.
I've definitely seen that. I mean, it's an up and coming market where people are kind of using,
whatever works.
Yeah, whatever works. So what is kind of the ROI on the equipment?
So, the ROI of having equipment, built-in redundancy that's going to work every time, and then having a factory direct service team that follows that equipment through its life cycle and that works with the grower to make sure it works. It's cheap in the long run. Far less expensive than trying to get an unknown contractor, an unknown controls guy, may or may not have any experience in this market, to integrate systems that weren't designed for this market. This stuff is designed from the ground up for this marketplace.
So for people that use this equipment, what kind of maintenance expectations should they have?
So, it's the maintenance stuff, or maintenance expectations that all mechanical equipment has. It's filter changes at every flower cycle. That's stuff that the basics are being done anyway. Typically they're washing the air tunnel at every flower cycle as well. And then typically a quarterly, just look it over, listen to it, make sure nothing weird is sounding, making sure that everything's tight. and then usually an annual checkup that's looking, getting into the electrical connections, making sure all that stuff's tight and ready to go. Beyond that, though, we use sealed bearing motors. There's no bearings to be lubricated there. We don't have any belts or belt-driven fans, so there's no belts to replace, sheaves to tighten, none of that. So from that perspective, we designed them to be as maintenance-free as possible.
Are you working on any new products or anything in particular, updates, changes, specifically for the industry?
So one of the things that's not shown here is our larger outdoor stuff. We do a compressor wall technology in our outdoor stuff. And that allows us to do, right now, in two sizes, a 38 and 45 ton nominal, 6 compressor, 12 stages of cooling. Again, driving that redundancy, automatic backdraft dampers on dual supply air fans. But what that allows us to do is with that high speed and low speed, is vary the sensible heat ratio that we're delivering to that room so that we're not over drying the space early in the grow, and that we're able to achieve very efficient dehumidification later in the grow.
Okay. What are your expectations for the market, in the next year and then over the next 5 years?
So the next year we're going to continue to see, we've got states that are legalizing and coming online all the time right now. The next year is just going to be driven with some frantic growth, and we're going to, I think, see that for the next 5. Canada still has a pretty severe supply shortage that's driving a lot of growth up north, and there's still a lot of states to come online. We are sort of expecting to see a federal legalization in probably the next election cycle, if I were to be a betting man. And if that happens, there's going to be an 18-month period for states to figure out what they want to do, and then there's going to be a huge explosion. And that's going to drive the next probably 5 to 7 years. Afterwards, we're expecting this market to get into indoor food production as a sort of long-term game. Money is driving innovation now in grow technology that's going to filter into that. We've already seen it in a bunch of projects. Local is the new organic for food, particularly north of the Mason-Dixon line, where you're not relying on California or Mexico to provide food.
Okay. What was it that brought you to the industry?
So I've been working in the dehumidification industry since 2003. With one of the major pool dehumidifier manufacturers. So I actually started in the factory in one of those facilities and have made my way up through the sales ranks before being asked to lead this division about 1.5 years ago. That's where I am now.
Awesome, man. Finally, sort of what are your thoughts on the show?
It's a great show so far. We've actually had some really good conversations, really interesting people, and actually, we haven't, it's been a very high value conversation show. We're not having a lot of lookers come by. So from our perspective, it's great.